All right, another beautiful morning, another day working on the sipper. We had a bunch of rain come through last night, but it has, you can see over there in the ditch, we got a little standing water. But the sun's out this morning, a little cooler, but we ready to go to work. Let me show you what I got going on over my shoulder here. All right. Okie doke, we are transitioning from metal work and paint to some woodworking. So I'm starting to look at framing my serving window. So what I'm doing right here is, I'm gonna have framing going around. And what I'm trying to do is decide what is my little inside trim piece gonna have to be. I checked right here and it's, I think it's like 2 inches. Over here, it's like 1 3/4 inches. I want to do this same thing, and see, and I'm putting them on the, making sure it's on the outside parts. Each of them's on that little ridge to give me a good constant dimension. Same thing over here. There's a little overlap and a little overlap, and it's spanning both of them. So let's move these and see what our bottom dimension is, because I'm gonna go with the largest dimension so we've got a consistent trim there. So let me move my stuff and remeasure and see what we got. All right, here we are on the bottom. And on the sides are high points where these overlaps, where the 2 panels overlap. Here, it's going to be the corrugations. Let's see if I can get where you can see where the high point of the corrugation is. So, my clamp wants to pull that top together, so I need to push that down with my hand to make sure I get a good constant dimension. So hang on, let me grab my tape measure. All right, I said hold it in my hand, but I can't hold the hand. I can't hold the camera and the board and the tape measure, so I'm gonna just hold it with my knee here. All right, let's see what we got. See, it's like 1 7/8. Let's try it from this other side and make sure here. See, that's like 1 3/4. Let me check the other side here at the bottom. Here we are on the other side, and I got my knee holding it up, my mouth pulling the tape measure out. We're using everything we got here, folks. All right. And we're at 1 3/4. So it's fairly standard across the bottom. That is our controlling dimension at 2 inches. Everything else is like 1 3/4 to 1 7/8. All right, so we'll measure and cut us some strips here that will line our opening, and I will show y'all why I'm doing that first, because that will then, once I get them in place, that will give me some sharp, defined corners to measure my framing cuts. If I did it now, I'm just guessing and eyeballing, and my corners would never match up. This still may not work, but we're gonna try it. Okay, let's get some length measurements. We know our width. So I'll rip me some strips, 2 inches, and let's check our length measurements. This is what I'm gonna be using to do my framing. It's just Southern yellow pine, pressure treated. These are actually deck boards that have rounded corners. I will end up trimming those off for straight edges, but the reason I'm using this is I can get all the dimensional lumber I need to build my serving window and bar and the window and everything out of this southern yellow pine. It's pressure treated, and when I stain it, it'll match. Of course, obviously variances in wood grain and whatnot, but it won't be like trying to match, you know, poplar to pine to cedar or whatever. You never get that to happen. So that's why we're using this southern yellow pine. It's easy to find, comes in a lot of different sizes, and I should be able to stain it and it all match. So now before we rip our 2-inch strip, you remember I told you this had a rounded edge, so I've got to rip that off first. So I measured it, and about a 1/2 inch I ought to take it off. So that's what I've set the table saw to. So let's rip that rounded edge off. All right, let's get to ripping. All right, so now we want to get our 2-inch cut. All right, now we're good. But let me show you something else. I rarely throw stuff away. Keeping this edge piece, you know, that could be a trim for something. So I'll keep these. All right. Let's get our first 2-inch cut. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, here we go. All right, so we got our 2-inch slats there. So what we'll do now is measure our openings. I'll probably end up having to cut another 2-inch strip to have enough. But let's start with what we got. So I'm gonna go out, measure these openings and cut them on my chop saw. So let's get that done. All right, my measurement's 40 3/4, and I want it to fit tight. 40 3/4 is going to be a little too tight. And I can always come back and trim a little bit off till I get the fit I want. So here we go. grab this piece of scrap. And my gentle persuader, and get this lined up. Now what I'll do once I get them all cut and sort of in place, then I'll get my level and whatnot and check for plumb. But like I say, right now all we're doing is cutting them and pre-fitting them, and then we'll pull them all out and stain them before we install them. But let's measure our other side. All right, let's grab our level. Because if our little trim pieces we just put in aren't perpendicular straight up and down, them measurements are going to be cattywampus for the top and the bottom. So we need to get those level perpendicular to make sure that what we're framing up here is square. My next door neighbor picked a great time to cut his grass. But that is what it is. So now what we'll do is check our top and bottom, because they should be the same to make it square. So let's take a look. All right, so what we've got there is square. So I've got to have two 2-inch trim pieces 61 inches long. I've already got one ripped, so I'll go ahead and chop it and put it in. Just measure 61. Actually, I'm going a little bit over 61, so I got to make sure I can get a tight fit. All right, let me go rip me another 2-inch strip. Okay, so we got our 61-inch long, 2-inch wide strip. Let's see if she'll set up there. That's gonna be a little tight, so let's take just a little bit off, because I may cut it a little over 61. So I make sure it's tight. All right, just taking off a sliver. All right, let me see if I can find a piece of the trim and take you up there and show you what we got going on now. All right, it's pretty windy after that storm, but maybe it won't be too loud. But here you can see I got my frame, inside frame put in. I don't have a piece of the deck board short that I can cut, but here's what we're gonna do is, you know, we'll have a trim piece that goes all the way around, and it'll be mitered in the corners, but see, it'll just go all the way around. Okay, you get the idea. Now I'm gonna have to do something different up here, and our trim is going to be wide enough to cover this. That deck board, that's like 6.5 inches, and that deck board is like 6 3/4, so it should cover that. And then we'll have to do something else. I'm probably gonna double stack and you know, cut the edges straight and join them. But this is what I meant by now I have some sharp corners to measure off to cut my miters. Before it'd been just a, you know, you can take a look at that. The corner I'd been measuring off of. No sharp edges. It just been best guess. But now we have sharp. Of course, we know 61. Our two bottom pieces are inside corners. We'll cut at 61, top and bottom. And then I'll have to come back and measure this distance and cut those. So that's what we'll do now. And then we'll have our pieces and we can stain them. All right, let's move on. All right, so me and Rudy went to the store and we've got our wood. You remember I had bought 6-inch material I was going to use as window casing, but when we put the little insert inside the window, it wasn't wide enough. So we went back, got some 8, and I talked to the boss lady, and we decided on what I would route the edge with, and went ahead and put a sample of the stain. So this is what we're going for. So the first thing I need to do is go ahead and route our boards, and then we'll be ready to cut. All right, let's do some routing. Let's see if you can get a good look at our profile there. All right, we got several more boards to do. So let me get to it. All right, let's set our window framing back in. All right, let's see how flush we are. Checker plumb. Okay. We're pumped, so now we have our set sharp edges here that we can measure off of to cut our 45s. So let's check our measurement. All right, last time we had the window trim up, it measured 61, so it ought to measure 61 again. It's right just a half a tick over 61. So we'll cut them all, this bottom piece first. We'll cut a 45 and measure 61 off that inside edge to cut the inside edge of our opposite 45. Let's go do that. All right, let's mark our corner where we want to cut. Keeping in mind, here's our trim edge, so it will be on the bottom window up here. So we want our cut this way. I have to visualize this stuff or I'll mess up. Cut it the wrong way. I know none of y'all have done that because y'all know what you're doing. But I don't, so I have. All right, now I also don't own a fancy big old saw, so I'm gonna have to make one cut, and then what I'll do is flip it over and make the other. Make sure I'm on 45. And I'm on my line. All right, let's cut. Let's make sure we lined up here straight. We're little kitty wampus. All right, here we go. Flip our. Alright, flip this bad boy over. Lined up. When you gotta do this, this is the critical part. Because I'm having to eyeball it. Alright, let's try that. Let's measure our 61 from the inside edge here. Got my pencils. Alright, let's look at 61 now, about where that's going to put it. that looks good. Put you all back so you can see. So there's my mark. Oh, let's get this way. There's my mark. Again, I've got this angled that way, so I need this angled that way. Gotta keep myself straight. Okay. Which we were a little off, so let's recheck. All right, let's go with that. Okay, we're out here, and this gonna be one of the moments of truth. I've brought pretty much every clamp I have. I don't know what I'm gonna need, and I put a clamp up there to keep that dadgum thing from falling on my head again. So let me set y'all right here. Let's see. That looks okay. Let me go get the first board. Excuse me. Alright. This is going to be fun trying to do single-handed, but let's see what we do. Oh, there you go. So that is kind of the look we're going for. So now let's take our measurement from here to here and cut this piece. So let me grab my tape. And let me bring y'all in here so you can kind of get a better look at what we're going for. You see it's flush. Well, it will be. But flush here on this, in the corners. And then we'll tighten this up when we put it together. So let's work on this piece. All right, I'm gonna set y'all over here. Yeah, get y'all back a little bit. And we'll readjust. And I'll cut my boards and we'll be back. All right, see y'all in a minute. All right, we're back with our next board cut. And I got my radio turned down so I don't have any YouTube copyright violations. So let's see how this fits. Got a gap there we'll have to fill with wood putty. I don't know why that did. Why my gap is off so much. Unless my hole isn't exactly. Alright. Let's measure our, let's measure our other side. Again, this isn't perfect, but I'm not a cabinet man. Once we get it up there, we can put some wood filler, stainable wood filler, and stain it. All right, let's measure our other side, do the same thing. All right, we're back with board number 3. That corner met better. I think I figured out what was wrong. I had some sawdust in my groove, and that little bit threw it off. All right. Here, let me let y'all take a better look. Here's that corner that's bugging me. But here's where we're going. See, all this comes together. Flush here. That's a better corner. But they both will probably still need some wood putty once we get them up. Okay, now we gotta look at this top piece. And we can't just use our 8-inch wide, because as you see, that doesn't cover the patch. So I gotta figure out, I really need like a 12-inch wide board, but I can't find a 1x12 pressure treated. So I'm gonna have to scratch my head a little bit. All right, oh, bumped into the Jeep. So that's kind of what we got going on here. Got to figure that top out. All right, let me think a while. All right, considering the materials that are available to me, what I'm gonna do is put another 8x, and then I'll use my Kreg joiner to attach a 4x on top, and that's what we'll route and cover. But I've cut my 8x8, and let's just test fit it. All right, the one thing I did notice, if y'all can see that, I'm gonna have to route that edge, but I'm gonna wait till I put my 4x4 on top, which will then cover that patch. I hope. Let's go grab a scrap, because you know a 1x4 is only 3.5 inches. So let's go grab one, and I'll hold it up there and let's see if it's gonna cover. Yes, just barely. So see, I will put a 4x4 on top here. and route all the way around. And just hope I can get this joint as tight as I can get it. And then we'll put wood filler in it, and sand it and stain it. All right, that's the direction we're gonna go. So let me get I do have a pressure treated 1x4, so let me grab it and we'll get it cut, attached, routed, and then we'll come back and look at it again. Alrighty. We got our board put together. You can see our 1x8. Here's our 1x4. Let me flip it over, show you how I put it together. I just used my Kreg pocket hole jig and just put a series of pocket holes and cinched it together. All right, so the moment of truth. Let's go set this up there and see if it's gonna fit. All right, here's our moment of truth. Please, please, please fit. All right, let's take you over here for a closer look. Not happy with my corners. Again, not a cabinet guy. Don't know what he's doing. But all the patches are covered. And it's square and level. So, what I'll do now is label them as I take them off, and I'll take them over and sand them and get them stained. All right, here we go. Boys and girls, I got ahead of myself. That top edge has not been routed to match the profile. So I gotta take that back down and route that edge. Alrighty, got a little ahead of myself, got a little excited. That's the way it goes. All right, so let's get her back down and route it.